All right, Chapter 9, Access Control Fundamentals. All right, we're going to talk about some, I don't know, kind of the more boring stuff, but it's actually very important stuff. Okay, verifying approved users. We're going to figure out who's approved on our systems. We're going to control their access. We're going to talk about the different terminology. The different methods and different practices. We're going to talk about how all this is covered. Okay, what is access control? Who has access to this room? Could that be considered access control? Sure. Can anybody in the world come in this room? Well, probably. This is a public school. But, I mean, you think about it. You go to the bank. Who has access to the vault? Anybody? No. Certain people. Well, the same thing needs to be available on our network. Who has access? So granting or denying approval to user-specified resources. So who can access the SQL server? Who can print to the printer? Who can do whatever? Okay. Information systems mechanism to allow or restrict. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the 4 models. And we're going to talk about some of the different practices. Okay, some terminology. Identification. Who are you? Do you have an ID card? Do you have a badge? Do you have a whatever? Okay, so some way of proving it's you. It says delivery driver presenting an employee badge. Okay. Now, can badges be faked? Sure they can. Anything can be faked right now. There's a website in Russia, I think, where you can order IDs online. It does not include Oklahoma, I looked. But they have some, I mean, they literally look identical to the States. You pay for them, but, no, Oklahoma's not there. I was going to buy one. Okay, but then authentication, checking your credentials, okay? We know who you are, but now do you have access, okay? Examining the badge of the driver, okay? Then authorization, granting him permission, okay? Allowing him to pick up the package or enter the room or do whatever we need to do, okay? Basis, we talked about identification, authentication, authorization, and then access. Okay, we could have an object. That could be a resource. That could be a file. That could be a printer. That could be a device. It could be a piece of hardware. It could be anything. So what is the object that we want to access? Subject is the person. Okay, user or process function on behalf of the user. Sometimes you might not actually do it, or you might do something that requires something else to happen, or might trigger something. So it could be a process as well. Okay. An operation, something you want to do. Maybe I want to read from the object, write to it, delete it, change it, modify it, whatever. Okay? All right. Here's our subject. Okay? The operation to it, we're going to do whatever to this spreadsheet file. We're going to review it. Okay? All right. Now let's talk about some of the models. Okay? There's predefined frameworks. We're going to talk about each one of these. They're used to implement this whole thing of access. Okay? People thought about this stuff, been doing it for years, so this is how they do it. Okay, we have mandatory access control, discretionary access control, role-based access control, or rule-based access control. Okay, so 4 basic ones. We'll talk about each one. Okay, mandatory says the most restrictive. Think of it like the military. Okay, some of us have been in the military before. Very strict on rules. Okay, so 2 elements. We have labels and levels. We'll see a picture over here in a second. It says the mandatory access grants permissions by matching the labels with the subject labels, object with subject. Do you have the right permission to access it? Okay. All right. If you have it, then you can open it. Okay. You can compare them, then you let them in. Okay. 2 basic levels of that. They have what's called a lattice, then a bella la padula or padula, however you pronounce that. We'll talk more about those. It says the lattice, the subject and objects are assigned a rung on the lattice. Multiple lattices can be presented beside each other. What they're talking about is different levels of access to the items. Okay. Think about it. We have subjects like when I was in the military, I had a secret security clearance. That's a level of security. Okay. And yet we have some people who had top secret. We have some people who, like right now, if you want to work at Tinker's Help Desk, you have to get a secret security clearance. What happens if you don't have the secret security clearance? Well, then you don't work there. That's as easy as this gets. And then when it comes down to the objects, or now what am I going to access? Does it require? I worked on AWACS. They had portions of the AWACS that required top secret clearance. So since I had secret, did I have access to those? No. And when I did have access to them, I was escorted. Like there was an area that was top secret. Whenever they needed work done on their computers, and I was the one assigned there, they would meet me at the door. They would escort me in. They would, announce, whatever, unauthorized person in the building, blah, 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 and they cover up all their stuff. Literally, there's a thing they had to do. I forget exactly what they would say. They had to announce it. It's kind of like when I was in basic training in the military. If they ever brought a female onto the male's floor, you had to go to each hallway and say, female entering the dorm, female entering the dorm, female entering the dorm. You had a certain set of rules you had to follow. Well, with this model, different people had different levels and different objects has different levels. Okay? The Bell module is similar to that. The subject may not create a new object or perform specific functions on lower level objects. What they're talking about is if I'm going to be writing top secret data, am I going to write it to something that's labeled confidential? No, I wouldn't want to write more important information down on something that's classified lower. If I did, that would have to be reclassified to higher. Okay? They don't explain it great in here, but oh well. Okay. Windows 7 and Vista have this. It says specific actions by a subject with lower classifications require administrative approval. You think of it kind of like run as administrator. Okay. Discretionary says least restrictive. It says every object has an owner, and they manage what can be done to it. It says object or the owners have total control over the object. Is that a good thing? I buy my house. Should I have total control over it? Sure. But do you always want to have that? Say I'm working in some nuclear place and I'm the owner of a file. Should I have the ability to just give it away to the Russians? No. Probably not. So it's not always the best idea. Okay. So, owner.
Also, assigning owners can be tricky sometimes because, some people say owners should be the business owner, but a lot of times the business owner or process owner doesn't necessarily care that much about security most of the time. They're
right.
About getting the job.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. All right. It says owners can give permissions to other subjects over their objects. So is that always good? Think about it. So I have ownership of an object. I'm going on vacation. So I'm going to ask my friend Shalon here, hey, can you take care of this object while I'm gone? No big deal. But what if Shalon's not cleared? What if she doesn't have the required whatever? So should I be able to make those decisions? So it's not always the best. Okay? Ever seen this? Windows needs your permission to continue. And the funny thing is, all you got to do is say, yes, I want to continue. I mean, it's not like it's that difficult. All right. All right, continue. It says, used on Unix operating systems and some Windows operating systems. So weaknesses. It says, relies on decisions by end users to set proper security levels. Do you always know? You don't always know. Okay? They're also inherited by programs. So if a program tries to access it, well, then the program can inherit whatever the right is of that. So it really could cause some issues. That's why it says Trojans are a particular problem with it. All right? And there we go. Mark Campia, the author of the book. Yay. All right. So what permissions does Mark have? Anyone see it? He has full control. Should you ever really give out full control? No. You should really give out modify. Modify can do everything that full control can do except for, well, change ownership, actually. Change ownership. So full control can give it away. You really shouldn't want, if I'm the one determining levels of access throughout the school, do I really want Brian to go in and take his files and give them to somebody else that I didn't say should have them? No. Okay. All right. Role base, also called non-discretionary. It says permissions are based on your job function. What do you do for a job? That's what you get. Okay. So based on a particular role, then we also have role-based. Changing roles to subject based on a set of rules. So the custodian decides what the rules are going to be. Okay. Says each resource contains access properties based on the rules. Okay, when you access the system, it checks the rules to determine what you can do with it. Rules can be changed, so access can be changed. Okay. It says business changes may trigger applications of the rules to be changed as well. Okay. Whoops, did I go the right way? That way? That way? There. Okay, now we're here. Okay, here we go. So mandatory, again, a little repeat here. Mandatory, end user cannot set controls, most restrictive, discretionary. The subject really can do whatever they feel like to it because they're really the owner of it. Role-based, it goes based on your role, and the rule-based goes based on your rules. Okay? All right. Best practices. So is it a good idea to follow best practices? Heck yeah. I mean, you ever notice, like in the Olympics, once someone does something different and gets a better score, then all of a sudden everybody else starts doing it? Well, a prime example, Eric's back there winning this game called Field Runners. He watched how I did it on the screen and is kind of helping a little bit because initially he just had his people throwing all over the place. Now he realized there was a better way of doing it, so he followed Ken's best practices, even though he modified them a little bit. But who knows, maybe his is better. It's obviously not because I didn't do it, but it's okay. So examples, separation of duties. What is separation of duties? So in my company, I was in charge of everything. I received the checks and wrote and signed the checks. Is that good? But in my own company where I'm the owner and it's one employee deep, it's okay. But if I work at Rose State, should I be the one who receives the money and pays it out? Probably not. Ken would have a very nice paycheck at that point.
Or approve and spend.
There you go, approve and spend. You know what I always thought was funny? You ever notice like in most churches, if it's like over $50, it's got to have multiple signatures? I know they do that because they want other people to know what's going on. But it's like, wow, you think $50 at a church is nothing. But, you know. Oh, well. How about job rotation? The Navy does this. Doesn't the Navy rotate jobs quite frequently?
Yep.
In the Navy, like you're a cook for 6 months, and you're a deep-sea diver for 6 months, and then you're a cop for 6 months.
Yeah.
In the Air Force, I was a jet engine mechanic. Well, then I switched at the end, but wouldn't job rotation be a good idea? We get an issue at Rose State when someone goes on leave. Like our secretary goes on leave, guess what happens while she's gone? Nothing. Then all of a sudden no travel papers get filed or nothing. Then we get yelled at because we didn't do travel papers, but there was no one there to do travel papers with.
We switch, especially rotate networking people and cybersecurity people.
Well, that's good.
And moving them around.
Yeah.
Because some of the best cybersecurity people did a lot of time in networking, and some of the best networking people work in cybersecurity.
I thought you were going to say it did a lot of time.
No.
I mean,
no.
it did a lot of time. Okay, this least privilege. I want to give you what you need to get your job done, but that's about all I want to give you. Do you need more than that? If you can get your job done with X permission level, isn't that all you need? Yes. Yet there's a lot of people that, no, I must have domain admin privileges. Well, you don't necessarily need
Well, that's what went wrong with WikiLeaks thing with Manning, is he had too much access to everything.
Nice. Implicitly deny. Unless I give you permission, you're denied permission. That could be a pain. Now, wouldn't it be easier for me to just go into the computer system and give everybody access to everything? Oh, that's called Dropbox. Every user can do whatever the heck they feel like to the files. It drives me bananas. You know, and I looked. I cannot find any way to set security on that stuff. If anyone ever finds a way to do it, let me know. Because, you know, it's crazy. Okay. Mandatory vacations. What the heck is that? Should you require people to take vacations? In the military, they do. Man, I remember in the military, man, if you ever got close to having too much excess leave, man, the commander would be after your boss. Why is he still here? You get him out of here now. He's on vacation, mandatory. Now, at Rose State, this year, I'm only losing like 27 hours of leave. This year. Last year, I lost about 120 hours of leave. The year before that, I lost way more than that.
So do you get vacation as an instructor?
Okay, as an instructor, we teach for 9 months, and we work 30 hours a week, and we get now 40 hours off for whatever, discretionary leave. You can take vacation with it.
Like personal leave?
Right, right. We get only 40 hours. Okay. Now, as the director, I work 12 months, 40 hours a week, and I get that 40 hours off like everybody else, plus I also get 14 hours a month off. So I get annual leave and discretionary leave. Okay? But the problem is I don't use it all. Like I said, you know, I'm on leave this week to teach. But even after this week, I have too much leave. So it's kind of...
You go more cruises.
Yeah, go on more.
I lost about 1,200 hours.
No, sick leave. I'm not talking sick leave. Sick leave, I'm way over 1,100 hours already. The way our sick leave works, once you accumulate 960 hours of sick leave, which I have, then you can retire a year early. Anything above 960 you lose. We had a lady, Carol Seiss, who used to be in Gail's office. She retired after 30 some odd years at Rose State. As far back as anyone can ever tell, she took 2 hours off. That was it, in their whole entire time at Rose State. You think she lost some leave? I mean, come on. We only work for 9 months of the year anyway. We're off for spring break. We're off for fall break. We're off for 5 weeks at Christmas. We're off the entire summer. So do you really need more time than that? I don't know. All right. But as director, so different. What now? Yeah, you see, need more time than that? Yeah.
Well, we receive 3 personal days. That's what they call them. You can use
Right.
fall or spring.
Okay.
If you don't, if you don't use them, you lose them. I've lost every year. I lost. Dawned on me the other day. It was like, well, darn, I already took a personal day.
Yeah. Well, we get 40 hours of discretionary, that's what you're talking about.
So
We can use it to skip out on office hours or whatever. Yeah, we get a little more than that. So.
Does that build up over time?
No, discretionary resets every year. Annual, like I have every year, anything above 252 I lose. Sick leave builds up. We get 10 hours of sick leave a month. That builds up. Okay. All right, so separation duties, we already talked about that already, but it's one person should not be in charge of too much. Okay. Rotation, we talked about that. Maybe do multiple different jobs so you know how stuff goes. Okay. Okay, advantages of rotation. Limited amount of time individuals are in a position to manipulate security configurations. It's helpful for them to learn, plus it's better for security. Release privilege, we talked about that already. So how about it helps reduce attack surface by eliminating unnecessary privileges. Only give you what you need, but the problem is figuring out what you need. But set it, and if they need something else, they can ask for it. Okay? There's a temptation to assign higher levels of privilege is great. Oh, it's very great. You ever have that where you just got to get it done and you just need to get it done, so you basically give more permissions? Yeah. One of my clients used a program called Mass 90. It was an accounting system. And I had to give them admin rights to the machine, because this program required them to write files to the System32 directory, which was stupid. I don't know why any application requires that. But we had this one girl who would keep installing junk on her machine, keep screwing it up. So we would try to take away admin, but this program would not function. So basically we called the makers of them, like, yes, they must have admin rights. Why? Why? All right. So challenges of least privilege. Legacy applications. Some applications require advanced levels of permissions. Common administrative tasks, sometimes you need more than that. Think about it. Okay, I'm on leave. I'm here this week. My travel papers for last week needed to be signed. So how did I do that? I didn't. So Art signed it for me. But maybe somebody else is around. Somebody else needs some other common task done. Like, think about it. You have a help desk person that might be resetting a password for a kernel with higher permissions than them. Can that happen? Heck yes, it happens all the time. So there's a lot of stuff where that might be an issue. Software installation upgrades. You ever be running a program and, you must install this update? Don't have admin rights, can't do it. So that could be an issue. Okay. Implicitly deny. Unless you have access, you're denied access. Okay. Mandatory vacations limits frauds because perpetrators must be present daily to hide fraudulent actions. Or some people just don't take vacations. I never do. Oh. Sure I do. I'll be gone next week. All right. Audit employees' activities usually scheduled during vacation. So that way if they catch you screwing up, they can catch you when you get back.
That's how banks do it.
What? That's how they do it?
We had to use all our vacation and had to take it in certain increments.
Wow.
Whether you were finance or worked with money or not,
Right.
you got audited.
They required you to do your vacation. But you couldn't, like, save it up to go on a little bit longer vacation later on?
Yeah, no. I mean, you couldn't, like, if you had 2 weeks,
Right.
you had to take it in week chunks.
Ah.
You couldn't break up. And then if you had 3 weeks, you had to take 2 of them together, and you could break up the third.
So they don't want you to take 2 days, and then 1 day, and then 3?
They don't want you to get a day
Okay.
because they wanted you to be gone a certain amount of time so they could, A, audit you, B, observe any changes while you were gone.
Oh, that's a cool idea. So, yeah, we need to go work for banks. All right. So, access control lists are permissions attached to an object. What can be done to this object? A lot of times with ACLs we think of routers, but they also pertain to other things as well. Specifies which subject may access it and what they can do to it, what they can perform. Okay? They're usually viewed in rotation of operating systems. We're going to see an example. Here we go. So these are Linux-based or Unix-based system. We have read, write, and execute. So the user can read and write. TDK, whoever that is, can read and write. The group can read, and everybody else can read. Okay? So the file is sample file. So different people have different accesses. I guess TDK is the group. All right. So it says each entry in the ACL is called an access control entry. And we're going to see a picture of one in Windows here in a second. Okay? Okay, maybe not. I thought it was there, but it's not. Actually, let me bring up Windows access control real quick. I was actually playing with it yesterday when we were setting that share. If I go into Ken's folder here and go to properties of it, I can click on the security of it. Now I can see that everyone has read access to this folder. Is that good? Well, for this class, yes, because I need you all to have read access to it. Okay? Administrators can do whatever they feel like. This unknown person can do whatever they feel like. That's probably not a good thing. There's probably an account of somebody who no longer works here, I'm assuming. Okay, it's not an admin account at least. Then this guy has full control, the system has full control, and everybody else has read-only. So this will be the access entries for this folder. Okay? Okay. All right, group policies is something came out with Windows Active Directory after NT4. Came out with Windows Server 2000. Okay? Excellent. You have something called GPOs, group policy objects, and you just get different things or different levels on everything. So the local group policy, actually let's look at the local group policy in here. It's, what's the MMC call for that? A GP edit? No, GP. Is it GP edit? No, it can't, no. It's something like that. Is it the local security policy?
GP edits for the registry.
What the heck, are they just not installed on this one? Hold on. Oh, I might not be administrator. Well, I found it. Can't open it. There it goes. All right. Here's our local policy. Let's look at some of the different policies on here. Actually, let's go up to account policies. Our password policy. 24 passwords remembered. Passwords are good for 42 days. The minimum age is 1 day. Minimum length is 7 characters. Complexity is enabled. Okay. Account lockout. You locked out for an hour. Wow. That's long. But 5 is a very large time. Normally it's set to 3 in 15 minutes or something like that. It's after 30 minutes. Okay. That's some of the policies on our machine. Now these can all be set through group policy, but since we're on the local machine, hence the local computer policy. Okay. They can't be overwritten, by the way. Account restrictions, limited time of day users can log in. I saw that used in the past, but it's not used much anymore. When I was in the military, way back when, I was able to access the network during a certain time. They sent me away to training down in Barksdale, Louisiana, Barksdale Air Force Base, Shreveport, I think it was. And I was in class all day long. So my training was at night. I mean, my training was in the day, so I had to access the computer at night. Well, I couldn't log in because that was outside my time period. Okay? So that came. I don't know anyone who actually implements that anymore. Does anyone know anyone who does? The time restrictions where you can only access at a certain time. I bet you guys don't even do that back there.
No, we don't. Well, we have 24-hour shifts. So.
Okay. So because really, a lot of people work at all times. You know, even though I'm on leave this week, I was answering emails. I was doing work. Can you imagine if they said, nope, you can't do anything? So, yeah. But you can restrict by time. You can also, account expires. When does it expire? It says orphan accounts that remain active after an employee has left. A lot of times you can actually set accounts with an actual expiration on it. I think I'm going to hire Brian over there that can work for me for the summer. He's going to be here for exactly 60 days. Why don't, while I'm creating the account, auto put in the date to expire it? That'd be a good idea. You don't have to forget about it. That Marine guy I was showing you all the other day, Caleb Glade, one of my employees, now works out there. And he was going through removing old orphan accounts. I used to take care of their network, but I quit years ago. My account was still active in their system. And it's been years. He's like, he called me, Ken, you still using this computer? I'm like, dude, I ain't logged in out there in 5 years. He goes, you still got an active administrator account? I'm like, oh, handy. All right. Here's kind of what the time could look like. So this person can work, no, cannot work from midnight to 1 on Sunday. That's a weird time. All right. But it shows when they can access the network and not. Okay, wireless access point restrictions here. You can set up when they can use the wireless access point. You can, which ports are available. You can list what PCs can access it and what day and time. So it's kind of a cheesy example of it, but it does work. Okay. Recommended dealing with orphan computers. Okay. You should have some sort of process to get rid of people after they leave. Terminate immediately. Monitor them. See if they're still trying to use it. Okay. Also set an account to expire. Okay. I was actually way back when I was at the land shop at Tinker. They had a guy who got kicked out of the military. Okay. But every now and then he kept accessing the network. And no one could figure out how he was doing it. And I was kind of put in the land shop kind of forcefully. And when they finally found him online one day, they came to me because, you know, they didn't want me there anyway. But they're like, since you're so smart, you find out where he's at. No one else can find him. So I go look at what they're looking at, and it shows that so-and-so is editing this document. And I said, so where are you saying that he's online? It says right here, this guy is editing this document. I says, no, that's the computer name. Because you know computer description, you can give it a name, they can give it a description. Then if you edit a document, that computer description is what's used to say who's editing it. I said, where's his old machine? Oh, he gave it to the commander. I says, I mean, the commander's editing the file. I says, you just forgot to change the computer description. They're like, I mean, all this time. See, what they thought was happening was the commander was editing the file. But whenever the commander was doing it, the guy was watching him do it. They figured the guy was watching the commander edit the file when it was actually the commander because they forgot to change the computer description from the old guy's name. And then after I told them, they're like, oh, okay, so you figured that one out. You know, that kind of stuff. It was funny, but little stuff like that. Okay, so password expiration sets the time when the password expires. Could be short. I think yours we just saw was set at 42 days. Might be a little short. How long is yours, Eric? It's probably shorter than that.
Oh, no, it's not.
It's not, really?
60 days.
Wow.
6 months.
6 months.
But see, we don't let them pick their own password. We give them a password.
Oh, great. It's probably 14 characters that they have to write down.
No, no. It's 8 characters,
Okay.
but it's got numbers, letters, special characters, and it's given to them.
See, when I was in the military, we had the same thing. I was given an 8-character password, and it changed every so many months. But the thing is, I used them so much, I can remember them to this day.
Yeah.
Because I would, man, we used something called CAMS, Core Automated Maintenance System. Anytime you did anything on the AWACS, you had to record it. And if you do 20 things in one day, you actually have to enter it 20 times. You got to put your password in 20 times. It wasn't one of these single sign-on, do all your stuff. It was every time you put an entry, you got to put in your password, save. Put in an entry, put in your password, save. And it was like, that's why they're stuck in my brain still. All right. But, 60 days, a month, 6 months, really depends on whatever your policy is. Okay. All right. Authentication, processing for verifying people. You can use a AAA, or Authentication and what's it stand for?
Authentication accounting.
Accounting and Authentication and Administration Service. I can't remember this stinking name.
Authorization.
It's authorization and accounting. What's the third A? That's probably on the next slide anyway. I can never remember what that one is. But different types of servers to support that. Okay, Radius is ones I've always played with. Okay, remote access dial-in user service. Okay, and I cannot remember the rest of them. There it is. Remote authentication dial-in user service. Way back when I ran that ISP, when I worked at one, we actually supported people dialing in. So I could actually see when they dialed in. I could see how long they've been on, and that's how we build people. It's all through the Radius server. Still in use today. Can still be used for VPNs. Can be used for everything. Okay, the client normally connects wirelessly, authenticates, then they're on. Okay, and there's just some weird picture of it. Okay, the credentials are stored in the database. It's easy because it's all centrally managed. Okay, like I said, it's good for billing and tracking. We had people who wouldn't pay their bill, and we didn't want to just cut them off because sooner or later we'd get our money from them. But they give us a phone number that was invalid. So what we would do was we go into the radio server because it showed where they dialed in from. So we know we have a good phone number at that point. So what we do is go into the radio server the moment they get on, we get their phone number, we disconnect them and dial them immediately. So even before they could redial, we were calling them and they're like, hey, you owe us some money. Yeah, pretty handy that way. Kerberos, made by MIT, is based on that three-headed dog. Still used today. Okay? Uses a ticket granting server and ticket authentication server. You're basically given a ticket when you log in. Anytime you go to access a resource, they check your ticket. Do you have the right ticket? Okay, it's difficult to copy. It expires after a few hours and you have to get a new ticket. All right, there it is. Terminal access control system. Does that not sound crazy to you? Terminal access control system. Why isn't it just terminal access control system? Doesn't that sound, maybe it would be too short. Taxes, I don't know why they did it. But, all right, it says similar to it, developed by Cisco, used on Unix systems. I've never actually seen this one used in the wild anywhere. I know it's out there. I've just never played with it. Okay? All right. We're going to compare them. Radius. Interacts with Kerberos? No. Can authenticate network devices? No. Where attackers can. All right. ldap. Windows, basically. It's based on what's called the X500 standard. That's what Active Directory came from. I think Linux. Wasn't Novell the first one to use the X500 standard, if I remember right? And now they're pretty much gone. Okay? So, yeah, I don't know anyone who's using Novell.
One of the banks in Kansas City still is.
I know the tax commission in Oklahoma City used it for a while because one of the workers there came through one of my classes and saw that I was certified in Novell, hired me to work on their Novell network. But it's one of those deals, that was my very first certification was Novell. But the problem is, if you don't use it, what happens? You lose it. I used to teach C++ programming every semester. I don't teach it now. I haven't taught it in 5 years. So someone asks me a question in C++, I'm like, great. I know how to spell it. But, it's tough because I don't use it enough. Okay.
The Oklahoma Department of Career Tech still uses it.
They still use Novell?
Yeah, they're merging away from it.
What, to Banyan Vines? No? So the Career Tech system still uses it. Nice. Yeah.
I think there's a large law firm.
Who is?
Bacon or something.
That still uses it?
Still uses Novell because when I was looking at a job before I came here, it said must have
Novell experience.
Of course, I had a CNA, and so that's why, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And of course, that wasn't a high enough level to convert them over to Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just too costly.
Wow. I was teaching at Gordon Cooper Votech in Shawnee, Oklahoma. And I was hired out there teaching A+ class. I used to teach A+ all over the place. I was out there teaching a class, and a girl in my class walks up to me at the end of class one day and says, do you like movies? I'm like, oh yeah. She goes, what kind do you like? I said, oh, action, adventure, that kind of stuff. She said, okay, she left. Next day at class, shows up. At the end of class, she brings in this huge box of movies. All these movies. She goes, here you go. All right, there's got to be a catch here. She goes, would you mind stopping by my video store? We'd like to consult with you. She was the owner of a video store. The one in Harris, Slick Flick Video in Harris, Oklahoma. If any, I know none of you are from there. So I went out there. They were running Novell, some old version, backing up to a tape drive. And at the end of the day, they would basically back up, and it would take 30 minutes to an hour to back up to the tape before they could go home at night. So, the system was really old. It was starting to have issues. So I talked them into switching to Windows 2000 at the time, Server 2000. Well, it was the lady's husband's father, whatever relation that is. Okay? It was the lady and her husband ran it, but really the father owned it. Okay? So the only system out there was Novell, according to him. So when I sold him the new system, she had me write on the invoice that it was Novell. Because he goes, no, there is nothing other than Novell. Well, I converted them over to Server 2000, and at that time we were backing up to zip disks. Remember zip drives? And they were good. But it was funny because we got all converted over. It was just a DOS-based program that they ran on 3 terminals. They just ran off of a network server. But we back up this thing onto zip drive. And I'm expecting, it's taking 30 minutes on the tape drive. It literally takes like 2 minutes, maybe less, because it's so much quicker. And I said, all right, we're done. She's like, done? How can it be done? But I mean, it literally was that much quicker. But then, I still take care of their computers. So I get all the free rentals and everything else. But yeah, that was Novell. Switched over to Windows, and they're running Windows Server 2003 right now, I think. Haven't upgraded in 2008. Maybe I have. I don't think so. Okay. I don't do much with it, as you can tell. I'm there at one server, 3 clients, and that's it. So one machine has internet access, the rest don't. So, all right. So LDAP, a database stored on the network, used for network resources, network authentication. It's basically Microsoft's. Okay. It's based on the X500 standard. Okay. And LDAP is a simpler set of DAP designed to run over TCP, similar functions. It's an open protocol. It just handles authentication. Okay. Whereas weaknesses can be subject to LDAP injection, similar to SQL injection. Again, I've never seen it happen, but I guess it could. Okay. And that's the end of this chapter. Yay! All right. It's in the chapter 9.